Now, if you listen to the Legal Hour often, you'll have heard me talk about the difference between law and government guidance. Law is law. In the context of COVID laws, if you breach them, you can be fined. Guidance is guidance. It's something the government thinks is a good idea. It's something that the government recommends you should follow. But there's no legal penalty if you choose not to. Now, there's been a lot in the news, and if you listen to LBC, a lot of my colleagues have been discussing it, about people deleting the NHS apps on their phones to avoid being pinged and required to self-isolate. We're hearing that huge numbers of people are being pinged, many just because they happen to have been in the same train carriage or in a shop with someone who has later tested positive for COVID. And we also know the government's thinking about dialling down the sensitivity of the app at some point next month. But, and here's the kicker, the requirement to self-isolate for 14 days if you're pinged by the app is guidance. It's not law. I'm going to say that again. If you're pinged by the app, there's no legal obligation to self-isolate. Government guidance encourages you to do so, but there's no criminal offence committed and no fine that you can be charged with if you don't. I'm going to read you the relevant law. I don't normally like to do that, but I think it makes what I say absolutely crystal clear. And it's Regulation 2 of the, wait for it, Health Protection, Coronavirus Restrictions, Self-Isolation, England Regulations 2020. And the regulations say, and I'm quoting, "This regulation applies," just pausing there, the regulation is the requirement to self-isolate. "This regulation applies where an adult is notified other than by means of the NHS COVID-19 smartphone app that they have tested positive for COVID or had close contact with someone who has tested positive for COVID." So the requirement to self-isolate only applies if you've been notified that you or a close contact have tested positive, but not if the notification was a ping from the app. Let me add, you'll have heard the word England in the titles of those regulations I read out. I'm an English barrister. I'm advising on the law in England. I recognise many listeners are from other parts of the UK, and I apologise I can't give 4 versions of the same advice, but I'm only qualified and insured to give advice about the law in England. Now, why am I saying this? A lot of people don't want to be pinged, so are deleting the app. But that's because of the wrong assumption that you have to self-isolate if you get pinged. That assumption's wrong. Keeping the NHS app gives you options. It gives you the option to self-isolate. It gives you the option to take lateral flow tests every day if you've been pinged. It gives you the option to eliminate non-necessary activities. What it doesn't do is put you at risk of criminal penalty or a fine if you don't self-isolate after being pinged.